Okay.
Hello and welcome to the UWS weekend warm-up. We have another cracking special with a fantastic guest, Mr. Jonathan Watson, famously known for Only an Excuse, Two Doors Down. How are you, Jonathan, today? You good?
I'm good, thanks, Fraser. Yeah, and thanks very much for having me in the programme.
Absolute pleasure. So we'll start. You grew up in Glasgow. We always ask our guests this since it's a sports show. Were you a keen footballer as a child?
Yeah, I liked playing football. I wasn't very good at it, but no, I love football. I still do, but I don't go and see it as much now. But growing up in St George's Cross in Glasgow, yeah, I was very keen in football. Yeah.
So did you always have aspirations to become an actor?
No, not at all. I What happened was the way I got into acting started at quite a young age, though. I mean, when I was about 10 years old, my dad came home one night and said that look, he said there's a junior course at the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, which is now the Royal Conservatoire at the top of Hope Street. And he said, there's a junior course there. Do you want to give it a go? And I said, yeah. So went along, and there was no pressure. If I didn't like it, that was fine. But it was basically a sort of Saturday morning drama class. And used to go on a Saturday morning for a couple of hours and a Wednesday for an hour after school. And I loved it. I didn't know what to expect, but I loved it. And at that time, if the BBC in particular were casting any young kids in any of the projects they were doing, at that time it was likes of Dr. Finlay's Casebook and This Man Craig, and obviously none of your listeners will probably know these programs, but they were big programs at the time. So they used to come along on a Saturday morning and sit up the back and watch the kids take part in the drama lesson. And then they would earmark a few and ask them to read. And I was lucky, and when I was 10, I looked about 8, so I could play down quite a bit. So I was in quite a bit of demand. So I did a lot of stuff from about the age of about 11 till I was about 17, and a number of projects. And but then that was just when I was finishing off at school. But when I finished with school, I had no intention into going into acting at all. That wasn't in my thoughts. And but what happened was I ended up. My dad was a commercial artist, which you would call a graphic artist now, who'd gone into advertising, and I was set to follow him into that line of work. And about halfway through the first year of the course that I was doing, I got a call from the BBC asking me to take part in this play they were doing, and I asked for the time off to do it, and they wouldn't give me the time off. And I said to my dad, I said, "What am I going to do?" And he said, "Do you want to do it?" And I said, "I'd like to do it." He said, "Well, just do it then." So I basically dogged it for 2 weeks and did this play. And at the end of it, my mind was made up. I thought, no, this is what I want to do. And the following day, I went into at that time the drama college was in St George's Place, Nelson Mandela Place, and I went in the next day, and I got one of the last auditions for the last intake for the following year, and I got in, and that was it. 3 years at the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, and 3 fantastic years, and I loved it. Yeah.
So you just talked about your academy there. One of your colleagues was Alex Norton.
No.
Was he not?
No, Alex was. Alex didn't go to the drama college full time, but he was in the junior course as well.
Oh, okay.
Alex and Brian Pettifer, another very well known Scots actor. They were a little bit older than me, so when I was actually at the junior course, I think Alex had left,
Oh, right,
just
okay.
left. But people that were there, believe it or not, in my first class, there was a young woman called Sheena Orr, who you probably know as Sheena Easton. So she was in my class, and I'm just trying to think who else you might. It's amazing, you look back. There's out of all the people that were there, there's only a handful of people that still are in the acting game. So, but I'm thinking 2 years above me was Phyllis Logan, who's from Downton Abbey,
Okay.
who was a wonderful actress. But no, and obviously I work with Alex now, but Alex also did a lot of stuff when he was a kid, like Dr. Finley's Casebook as well. I did a couple of episodes of that, so so I was following in his footsteps, if you like. There, yeah.
So, you obviously were a keen footballer. Did you have a favourite team in around Glasgow?
I support Glasgow Rangers.
Oh.
That's my team. Does that go down bad? No, is that
Mr. Monroe's a Celtic man.
Oh, are you?
Keen Celtic
Oh,
man. Yes.
don't worry, you'll be back. You'll be back. It's all part of the old firm merry-go-round. No, I was a Rangers fan and still am, and but I don't go to the games as much now. I tend to watch them at home and do that. Well, of course, I don't get the games because you can't go. But even before lockdown, I wasn't going all that much. So, but
Did you have any idols from your childhood for Rangers?
My favourite player is somebody who you probably won't have heard of. It was a man called Davy Wilson, who used to play in the left wing for Rangers, and he was my favourite player as a wee boy. And I was fortunate enough. He lived in Kilbarchan in Renfrewshire, and my mum's mum, my nana Ramage, she lived in Kilbarchan, and one day I used to get shipped out there for the summer holidays, and my cousin Freddie said, you know that Davy Wilson lives in Kilbarchan? I said, I'd love to get his autograph. So the two of us traipsed the length and breadth of Kilbarchan. It actually wasn't all that far, but when you're about 9, it was like forever. And we got to his house, and his house was called the Left Wing. He was a great pigeon man. He had a big pigeon duke at the back. And I rang the doorbell, and he came to the door, and he said, what do you want, son? I said, can I have your autograph, please? He said, sure. So he signed it, Davy Wilson, Rangers FC. And I've still got it to this day. He knows this story. I've had the chance to tell him this. He said, Davy Wilson, Rangers FC. And the next day he signed for Dundee United. So there you go.
Oh, brilliant. You couldn't do that nowadays, could you? Like, just walk up to a football player's house. Oh,
no, it was near where the War Memorial is in Kilbarchan. That's where he stayed, and no, you couldn't do that now, probably. No,
that's amazing.
So he was my favourite. But other favourites, I loved watching Davy Cooper, Brian Laudrup, and also Ian Durrant. So there you go. There's 3 names for you.
So prior to Only an Excuse, did you have any other favourite acting roles that you did?
Well, yeah, I mean, Only the Excuse was made by the Comedy Unit, and I've got a sort of long history with them because I joined them not that long after I came out of drama college. I came out of drama college in 1979, and I started working there about 1983 on a program called Naked Radio, which gave birth to Naked Video. And also at the same time, around about the same time, we did a pilot for a program called City Lights, which was a sitcom that was done in the sort of 1986 to 1992. It was a sort of the sort of still game of its day, if you like. It was a big hit. So all these programs, I've got really fond memories of working on all these, especially the Naked Radio and Naked Video stuff. I absolutely loved that. And out of these programs, the likes of Naked Video, came Rab C. Nesbitt and Only an Excuse as well. So but the guy I work with on Only Excuse, Philip Differ, who came up with the idea of doing the program. Philip worked in all these programs as well. So we've been sort of working on and off for the best part of nearly 40 years now. So I mean, you must have thought he must have started when he was 5.
Oh, absolutely. So you've just touched on there. You work with Philip Differ. How did the idea for Only an Excuse came out? Was it based on a parody from Only a Game? Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. It was all Philip's idea. We used to watch Only a Game when it was broadcast. It was a great program. It's a kind of odd thing. It was a 5-part, because usually these things are 6-part, but it was a 5-part history of Scottish football, and it featured, the players, the managers, the teams, covering all these different things. And it was written and narrated by a wonderful writer called William McIlvanney, who had a very distinctive tone as well when he spoke. And we loved it. We absolutely loved it. And we used to rip it off when we were doing Naked Radio. We used to record Naked Radio on a Friday in the Tron Theatre. So we'd be in the bar marking up our scripts before we went out to do the lunchtime show. And I was always doing William McIlvanney, if old Jimmy Murphy to say, pick a man to score a goal to save your life, there's only one man you would choose, and he was the lawman. And you got into Dennis, So it was great fun to do. And on the back of that, Philip went to a guy called Stan Taylor, who was head of Radio Scotland at the time, and he said, "Look, I've got an idea to do a parody of Only a Game, and I wonder if it'd be possible to get some money to make a pilot." And he said, I'll write it along a couple of others, and Johnny will be in it. So I'm going to ask Tony to be in it. And, I think it'll work quite well. And Stan said, I'll tell you what, he said, forget the pilot. Just make the programme. We'll give you a budget for it. Now, that would never happen now. The way things work, the way things are commissioned, that would never happen. Philip would be asked to say, well, let's see a script. And then there would be to and fro's, the rewrites and all that. But back in these days, it was instinct. And Stan said, that sounds like a good idea. Go and make the programme. And that's how it came about. But it's all Philip's idea.
So did that give you a lot of confidence where you didn't have to make a pilot? The guy just said, look, we trust you. We'll give you a budget. Just go and make what you want.
Of course. Well, yeah, I suppose so. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, well, we made it over a weekend. We did it on a Saturday and Sunday in Old Queen Margaret Drive. I mean, if you've listened to the original tape, there's things like a phone-in. Well, we actually did it like a phone-in. Philip and Tony were in one office, and I was outside in the corridor in another office, and I actually phoned up in a phone for a spoof of the Radio Clyde phone-in. So things like that. It was all sort of very relaxed. But it was a right laugh. It was great fun. It was just the three of us mucking about over the weekend. But they put it out just before Scotland played West Germany in the 1986 World Cup. That was a game, I don't know if you've seen it. Gordon Strachan scores, and he goes to jump over the billboards and can't do it. Because kids on it, his legs are too short. But it was put out before that game. And it just caught fire. And of course, this is the days, obviously, before social media, but it just took off, and people loved it, and that was the start of it. Yeah.
So one thing I really want to know is, of all the characters that you do in Only an Excuse, what are the kind of methods that you use, like to study all the characters from Scottish football?
Well, there isn't a kind of set rule on it, and you might be interested to know that when we did the first program, mimicry wasn't part of it at all. I think I did McIlvanney, and I did Dennis Law, and these were the only two voices. The rest were all sort of made up characters and stuff like that. And then it began to creep into the program, and it just depends. It's Philip had said, see if you can get Graham Souness, and God, I was trying everything, couldn't get it. And then I was watching a documentary that was on STV, I think, and in it he was talking about signing Terry Butcher, and he said, I tell you, he said he's a better player than I first thought. And when I heard that first thought, that was it. It was away, and so it could be that, it could be, I don't know, the odd word in, but there's not a kind of set way of doing it, you know. Well, that's me. That's the way I mean, I never think of myself as an impressionist. I mean, fantastic guys like Alistair McGowan and Rory Bremner, that's what they do, and they're brilliant at it. I mean, they really go into it in fine detail. But I don't really have a kind of set way of doing it, you know.
Good man. Well, what I just wanted to know quickly was how early in advance is sort of the filming done, and have you ever had to sort of re-edit or re-script the program because something's happened?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, we usually when we did the program for it going out in Hogmanay on the 31st of December, we would normally film it round about the beginning of December. And the program would be delivered about the middle to the third week in December. But that changed depending on what my other commitments were. And the guys were very good at giving me a bit of leeway. For instance, this year we recorded it quite late because I was doing another job down south, and so they cut me a bit of slack and moved the dates about. But normally that's what it would normally happen about then. It would happen if I was, say I'd been asked to do a pantomime in Glasgow, it would be done probably about the beginning of November. But I didn't always do that. So it was normally about the beginning of December. And the question you ask about, do we ever have to re-edit things and, you know, update things? Yeah, we did. I mean, I remember the time that Dick Advocaat was manager of Rangers, and he stood down, and Alex McLeish was very quickly installed, and that was just a few days before Christmas, I think. It might even have been between Christmas and New Year. But what I do know is that we had to go in very quickly and do an Alex McLeish press conference, which was done literally about 2 days before the program came out. So, but there's been a few occasions when we've had to do that over the years, just sort of fine tune things a little bit. So, yeah.
How many? I imagine you've had the opportunity to meet many of the people you've tried to sort of mimic over the years. Have they ever taken it in the wrong way? Well, you got them spot on. To be fair, okay. Have they ever had any like backlash or anything from it?
Well,
is everyone taking it well?
I think by and large everybody does take it well, and I always put that down to the fact that the humour in a footballer's dressing room is much more brutal than in the sketches that we put out in TV. And certainly, I mean, I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of these guys. I mean, you know, people like Ken Dalglish, and, you know, idols, you know, people that you've watched since you know you were younger. But I've met a lot of the guys, and they've all been very, very good about it. In fact, in the program that went out at Hogmanay, Graham Souness, Kenny Dalglish, and Walter Smith were asked and said yes right away. They were dead keen to do it, and as was Frank McAvenny as well. And so the fact that they hadn't to be coaxed, they were more than happy to do it, and they were great in the program. So as far as people I'm sure there have been people that have been upset by it, but you know, it's just one of these things. You know, the saying is, a good joke will always hurt somebody. So as long as they're not going to flatten me, that's okay.
Have you got a favourite character you do?
Well, I always get asked this. I suppose in the course of filming, it all depends what sketches there are. It's whatever's the funniest sketch. But the ones I think that stand out, I always loved doing Dennis because it was bonkers. You know, it's just this mad riff, and also Frank McAvenny, and Philip says these are the two that you could quite happily improvise with, and I think he's right. You know, I could just go off on one because I very often go off the script with these ones, and or Dennis, I'll go off and where's the wee man going? Oh, come back! So, but McAvenny as well. I love doing him. We used to do the live shows. We would always finish with Frank McAvenny. We'd have a big build up. We usually have it. Have him coming out to Led Zeppelin's Kashmir, and then some kind of fancy lighting setup, and you used to just be able to stand there for ages looking at the audience, and it was a great laugh. I mean, I remember we recorded this was about 20 years ago at the King's Theatre. I did a week at the King's, packed week at the King's, and the night that we filmed it, there was a woman up the back of the stalls, and who was, you know, that when people are laughing and you know that it's causing them great pain. Well, she was in agony, but but it was great because I was able to use it, and the rest of the audience are swept along as well. So, so these two probably, Dennis and Macca. But I like doing Souness as well. I always think Souness is probably the most accurate of the voices. So that's always good to do as well.
That sort of leads on to my next question. Is there like a certain writing process to the show, and like any characters that you think go down well with the audience in particular?
Well, that's probably a question that Philip's better to answer, but he's not here, so I'll try my best answer for him. There's no sort of real process in that. We'll look at what's happening. You know, we used to meet up maybe in the autumn and look back at events that were sort of kicking about and think about new characters that were coming in. And I would maybe throw in a couple of names, and Philip and Rab and Noddy would say, we would try and so, you know, all these things. So, and then they would go away and the writers would try, and Philip would he would work on it as well and get the writers to maybe try and find something with these guys. It was quite a small writing team that he built up over the years, which he constantly changed as well to try and keep it fresh. So that was the kind of process, and then I'd come back and read it a couple of times and we'd tweak it and stuff like that. So by the time that we do this stuff on when we film it, it's probably, and it's about 4th, 5th, 6th rewrite, you know. So
am I right in saying it was only sort of a one-off special that Only Excuse was meant to be?
Well, yeah. What happened was that the first time it was done in TV was a kind of mini Only an Excuse, and Philip was producing a program called The Ferguson Theory with Craig Ferguson, and I was part of that as well. And because Craig used to do stand-up routines, and then they were interspersed with sketches, and Philip very cleverly decided that one of the little group of sketches in between the stand-ups was going to be me doing the likes of, I did certainly Souness, I did Dennis Law, and I may have done a couple, I can't remember what the other couple were, but that was the very first time it was done in TV. And on the back of that, a TV special was commissioned for Hogmanay, and it went out. It went out just before, I think it was either Scotch and Riot or I Am Jolly at the time, which was Ricky Fulton's thing, which Philip used to produce as well. And I think initially it was probably we made one in the hope that others would follow. I think the guy who commissioned it at that point, he was more a rugby fan, and it was very much last minute. I don't think there was any plans to do one the following year, but there was a kind of a public outcry, and we very quickly put together a second one with stuff that we'd over from last year, plus new stuff that we quickly filmed, and it went out. The second one went out, and that was it set. That was it established. It was going to be part of the Hogmanay special. Having said that, we never knew. It was only around about Easter each year that we knew if it had been recommissioned. They used to keep us in tenterhooks, so it was never a situation that we knew that we'd years in advance. You know, we could be doing this for the next 10 years or so. We were only commissioned by each year, so which was good because it kept pressure on you to, you know, really do your best, I suppose. So, yeah.
Especially in the last few years, has it been a little bit more difficult to get away with certain things, you reckon? Or having maybe get an okay from somebody from the BBC? Or is it all
very much. Yeah, very much. So I think, you know, all aspects of comedy have got to be wary and be very politically correct. And there's stuff that was done not so long ago you would never do now. You know, you would never you wouldn't be allowed to do now. So, but that's just the way of it. That's just the way you know, things evolve. What we ended up having to do was that we were asked to do about 10 years or so ago. We were asked to spread it out a little bit and not just focus entirely on football. The BBC wanted us to look at the politics of the time, look at Holyrood and stuff like that, and that was partly down to the fact that Philip and I had worked in a programme that we used to record at the Glasgow Film Theatre every Friday lunchtime, and it went out on a Saturday. No, it went out on a Friday night actually. It was called Watson's Wind Up, and it took a sort of look back at the headlines that made the news, and we would take the mickey out of it. And a lot of the material that the writers got a lot of stuff from was from Holyrood, from the Scottish government. So we were asked to sort of try and introduce some of the elements of that programme into Only an Excuse. So, and that's why it began to spread itself a little bit.
Did you start to feel a pressure year on year to make the show and make it new and fresh and creative every year?
Not really, no. I can honestly say that because that's, you know, this is what we do. This is our job, and we love it. We're very lucky, you know. We love what we're doing and we're getting paid for it. And I didn't feel any pressure. You just want to make the best program, and that's the same in any job. So I never let that into my head at all. And I don't think anybody else working on it did. We just, you know, right, we got a commission, bang, let's go. So and that's the way we approached it. It was never, you know, it was always very positive and let's give it our best shot, you know.
How did it feel, sort of every new year, seeing your show on Hogmanay and it becoming sort of a tradition for the family to sit around and watch your show every year?
Well, it kind of did. I mean, it was usually the first time I saw the final edit. Although I used to go in to do the dub and everything like that, and I would normally see the audience night. I'd always be present at the audience night where all the sketches are. So there's about an hour's worth of material that has to be whittled down. So it was it wasn't a laughter track that was laid on. That was the genuine laughter track that was recorded on the night. I'd go along to these, but the actual final edit I didn't see until 11:15 in Hogmanay. And yeah, we used to sit around. But I'm not great for watching myself in television. I don't particularly enjoy the experience. So, but yeah, my family my wife and son had to endure it and sit around. But no, they were always very positive about it. So it's okay.
So last year was the final Only an Excuse. When did you start to think about this? This will be the final episode.
It was actually probably around about the 2nd or 3rd of January last year, because Philip and I, what we always do is, it may have been even the 1st of January, but either one of us would phone each other up to wish each other a Happy New Year, and we'd also then have a sort of little powwow about and post-mortem of what we thought worked and what maybe didn't work and all that kind of stuff. So it's probably around about the 2nd or the 3rd we had the conversation, because we knew that the viewing figures were good. So that we must have been a bit of time for that to come in. And for the first time ever, we just said, maybe we should begin to think about calling it a day, because we can't be doing this forever and ever. Okay. And we both agreed on that, and we thought if we're fortunate enough to be given one more commission, we'll make this one our last. And then the BBC came to us about April and said, well, if that's the case, why don't we go out, with a bang and do a 1 hour special? And so we looked at ways to spice it up and use archive stuff from years gone by, and then get some interviews as well that people have contributed as well. So a bit of a mix, but the viewing figures for that have been fantastic. So it obviously was a good way to bow out,
So obviously, how big is Only an Excuse? Like, how big a part in your life is Only an Excuse played?
Well, it's a huge part, yeah. But I don't really get all that sentimental about jobs coming to an end or anything like that. So I sorry, don't want to disappoint you, but there's I've done a number of jobs that I absolutely loved being part of, but this is what happens with in this line of work. Things don't go on forever, and they sort of tie up, and then you move on. You move on to something else. But it's been a huge part of my life. There's no doubt about that, and I'm very fortunate to have worked with so many great people on it, and and we still, the guys that made it, we still keep in touch. I mentioned you before we started recording, we did a podcast which is up on BBC Sounds called Only an Excuse, Chico's Hall of Fame, where me as Chick Young takes you through the lives of the good and the great, and we bring in it really is, it's a kind of throwback to the origins of the program. It's just audio, and it's just football. There's no politics. There's no Tommy Sheridan, Kathy Jimison, Alex Salmon. It's just football, and it's people like just trying to think, we would done Graham Souness, Ken Dalglish, Dennis Law, Alan McInally, Barry Ferguson, Frank McAvenny. But then they all mix come in as well. There's loads of other people contribute along the way that characters we've touched on over the years. So that's been great to do. It really has. We finished doing them in the end of January, and they were great fun to do. So we maybe do more of these. Hopefully, there certainly seems to be the appetite for them. So we'll wait and see.
Tremendous. Last Only an Excuse question, I promise.
Okay, go.
What have you got a favourite sketch over the years? Obviously, the one doing the rounds on Twitter and stuff was the Frank McAvenny Pump 2 one which I'd never seen before.
Oh, you never seen it?
No, neither.
I'd never seen that before until this new year.
Well, there's a couple of good. There's that one, and I don't know if I should actually say this, but you may have to beat this out. But there's also one where he's walking along the side of the canal, and this smashing actress Claire Waugh, who used to be be part of the programme as well. Claire stopped me and asked me about how Scotland is thinking about reintroducing beaver, and Frank just stands and looks at her, and and I mean, poor Claire was in agony because we must have done it about 20 odd times. I mean, she was in pain. So the beaver sketch and the Pump 2 sketch were favourites, but my favourite sketch of all time isn't necessarily the funniest, but it comes from a World Cup special that we did in 1994, and it was you probably know this as well. It's a year that Scotland didn't qualify for the World Cup, but Philip, I don't know how he did this, but he managed to convince the powers that be that we should do a World Cup special, and if we were going to do it properly, we would have to go to New York. So we went to New York for a week, and we had 3 days filming and 3 days weather cover. We managed to get everything done in the first 3 days. So we had 3 days in New York as a freebie, which was unheard of. It never happened now. But we've got all the film done Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then the Saturday night, the very last sketch was me as Dennis Law in Times Square. And it was mobbed. I think there was actually another couple of film crews in Times Square at the time. Nobody batted an eyelid. So I'm done up in this blonde wig and with Dennis's blazer on. And there was Brian Jobson, the cameraman, Jim Hunter, sound guy, Philip Differ, producer, and Charles Marks, our production manager. And Brian had the camera set quite low, looking up at me as Dennis Law. And in the background was the kind of iconic neon signs and everything like that you associate with Times Square. And all I had to do was look down the camera and say, "Welcome to Shocker Babylon." And that was it. And that was my favourite, because it was such a thrill to be working, actually filming there. And so that is my favourite sketch of all time. But the other two you mentioned are good as well. So yeah.
Machiavelli.
I think my favourite.
Right, I'll leave it to Fraser to finish up.
I think my favourite has to be Stuart Cosgrove. I don't know why I found that so funny, but it was when you were talking about Stuart Cosgrove, and then he's talking about different things. And then it goes to Stuart Cosgrove on Stuart Cosgrove. He just goes, "You can't beat it." Don't know why I find that so funny.
Well, he get presented with an award a couple of years ago at the RTS Awards in Glasgow. He got some fellowship or something like that, and our Grand Wizard, and they played loads of stuff of me doing them, and actually there wasn't much of a difference. So. But he's a good guy. He took it in good heart, and he very kindly contributed to the Hogmanay programme as well, which was greatly appreciated. Yeah,
brilliant. So you've briefly talked about your podcast. Do you want to go that into a bit more? Is that one of your major plans for 2021, or do you have anything else in the oven?
Well, what I'm going to be doing next, the next big job is. We're lined up to do a 5th series of Two Doors Down, which has been put back because of the COVID lockdown. We were originally meant to start recording series 5 in March of last year, but it moved back, shunted back about 3 times, and we did a festive edition which went out on the 28th of December. And the plan was to shoot Series 5 in March, but because of the restrictions, that's been moved back to May. So that's the next big thing. There'll be other bits and bobs in between, but we very much hope that will happen. But the way things are going, I think there's a very good chance that they will go ahead with it unless there's a major setback. But hopefully with the vaccine in place now, that we'll be able to go ahead and do it. Yeah.
So how's it been working with Alex Norton? I actually have a little tidbit here. My mum was telling me yesterday when I told you I was to be interviewing you, and Alex Norton, I'm not sure if you know, I think it's either his wife or maybe his ex-wife, she's from where I live, which is the Highlands.
Sally Kinghorn.
Think so, yeah. I think
It's not
that's
his ex-wife. That's
his current wife.
That's his wife. Yes,
Whoops.
yes. He has. He's missed out telling us that he's been married before. Now he hasn't. It's Sally Kinghorn.
But yeah, she is from up here, as far as I'm aware. And Alex Norton has stayed in my granny's house because she used to run a B&B.
Oh, really?
And like whenever they came up here, they used to stay in my granny's house.
Oh, brilliant! So where are you speaking from just now?
Tain.
Oh, Tain.
Tain
Oh,
in
right,
Russia,
brilliant. Yeah, I know exactly where you are. Yeah.
Must be one of the first people ever.
Well, there's another smashing actor, a good friend of mine. He's up from. He's from Golspie. That's quite near you, isn't it?
Yeah. It's like half an hour away.
Well, his name's Jimmy Yule, and
yes, yeah. My mate knows Jimmy Yule actually.
Yeah, Jimmy's a great character, and he's a fantastic actor. Jimmy and I did Local Hero together.
Oh, really?
And my favourite memory of that was on 2 occasions that I foolishly went out with him for an evening. The first time he said, "Now listen," he said, "what we're going to do is," bear in mind, we're going up at 6 o'clock for work the next one. What we're going to do, Johnny, is he said, "we're going to drink Macallan whiskey because it's so pure we will not have a hangover." Okay, so so we did that, and that was the first mistake. And then we did a day off, and we ended up this time we filmed in the West Coast and also the East Coast. And when we filmed in the East Coast, Jimmy and I and a couple others stayed in a cottage overlooking the beautiful little Bay of Pennon. But the crew were either stationed in Fraserburgh or Banff. And we went into Banff one day, into the Banff Springs Hotel. And we get in a conversation with this guy who was Des Bremner's brother. Des Bremner played for Hibs and Aston Villa. Might even have won the European Cup with Aston Villa. And Jimmy thought it would be a good idea to drink the gantry. Go down the gantry and drink every single drink. So thankfully I recovered in time for filming 2 days later. But Jimmy's a great guy. Oh. Yeah, I'm very fond of him.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So are you enjoying Only Doors Down?
You might not want to put that story in actually. You might want to take that out.
Oh, this will absolutely be going in. This is brilliant. I love this.
Good content.
So are you happy with 2 Doors Down? Just quickly before we wrap up.
Oh yeah, it's a great job to do. It's Gregor Sharp and Simon Carlyle, the writers, do a wonderful job, and coming up with the ideas, really well-rounded characters. It's it's great to be part of the program. It really is. Yeah.
Super. So thanks everyone for watching and listening to this episode. It has been great to have you on, Jonathan. Make sure, if you haven't watched the Hogmanay special of Well If Only an Excuse, it's brilliant. It's got to be one of my favorites. And the links will be for your podcast as well. We'll
great stuff.
be
Thanks
giving
for doing that.
listen to that. It's brilliant. You've kept Only an Excuse going as well, even though you can't do filming. You're still giving people like bits of Only an Excuse content, which is brilliant.
Yeah, well, it's certainly it's sort of retro edition of it, if you like, and so maybe take it to a younger audience now and see how it all started out. Brilliant.
Well, thank you very much, Jonathan.
Okay, listen, guys, thanks very much for having me in the program.